The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All right, here we go. Welcome to the program with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. A ton to get to on the show today. Nico Iamaleava just keeps getting hype. And at what point do you feel concerned for the young man? I think we're reaching that point. My last check, it's still February. And here we go. More talk about him from Chris Lowe. Talk about him from 24/7 Sports. We'll discuss that. Hit the like button now. Go ahead and get on board. Hit the subscribe button. Turn your notifications on. If you haven't done that, we greatly appreciate that as well. Also, coming up on the program, we're going to talk some Tennessee non-revenue sports for a moment, as they seem to be cruising quite along. Your thoughts on non-revenue and as they stand right now heading into the spring season, Caleb?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement for non-revenue sports. I think, we can call them non-revenue sports, but Dave, let's put it out this way. Part of the concept of non-revenue sports, even if they lose money, is you could maybe make sure they don't lose as much money as they could. You know what I mean? So you could supplement it to a certain degree. And
for those that want to say, just take that money you were going to spend on softball or crew and put it towards NIL. No, that's not the way Title IX works. And one of the things we have figured out from NIL is that, Caleb, it's not proportionally or directly tied to money at all. You just still have to provide the ultimate opportunity for a female athlete to pursue the same things as a male athlete, when this in particular case would be a scholarship playing a sport, correct?
Exactly. So that's kind of the hope out of this. And you hope it doesn't hurt the revenue you're trying to generate at the revenue producing sports, because you want that money to be able to pay players nowadays and get the best players possible. So it's kind of a win-win where you can still protect the female sports, and not just the female sports. We make it like it's men versus women, but guys, it's not men versus women. It's just men's basketball and football versus everything else. Every other men's sport is non-revenue producing too. So, I don't want to pick on the women on this in that regard.
Very true. Steve Sarkeesian, we don't want to pick on the women nor the drunks. Steve Sarkeesian is the third highest paid coach in college football. That was just so tacky.
That was so low, Dave. You know that?
I feel bad about that one, but not that bad. Is North Carolina State an underrated, dangerous opponent for the Vols? Maybe.
North Carolina State.
Yes. What did I say?
You said North Carolina.
Yeah. No, Drake May's gone. So NC State, an underrated, dangerous opener for the Vols. Also, men's and women's just dominate Vanderbilt in basketball. So I wanted to start off with this, actually. Who's the sneaky team that you think Tennessee fans really like to beat? That's going to be our poll question today. So I think it's Vanderbilt. I think there's more on the line with Georgia, Florida, Alabama. At least there has been traditionally. But I think that sneaky team that you just love to beat is Vanderbilt. So I'm going to go to the message board. Give me your thoughts. It's going to be our poll question today. So who is that sneaky team that you love beating? And I think we'll get some South Carolina votes after the Columbia collapse. Caleb, is it too soon or too far from that to start getting some South Carolina votes?
No, you might. That sneaky team, Dave, really depends on where you're a Tennessee fan, though. So, like, there was a reason. Remember the whole Juwan Jennings lash out on Instagram? That's because he wanted to play against Vanderbilt. Why? He's from Murfreesboro. But I mean, for instance, me growing up in Memphis, like a lot of Tennessee fans who got annoyed by Memphis fans because Memphis fans tried to pretend like that was a rivalry and it's not. And so they wanted to beat Memphis.
But I think Memphis is a good one. Can I put that on the today's tough question?
Yeah, sure.
Because the reason is you love beating Penny. And that got ugly for a while between both parties, Barnes and Penny. And I heard it.
That's not the first time it got ugly. It got ugly with Calipari in Tennessee too, by the way.
Yeah. So let's okay. So I got Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Memphis. Who else?
Kentucky. Is that really? I mean, Kentucky's not sneaky though, are they?
I can go Kentucky because they're not going to win a football championship. That's kind of my one parameter.
Now, for your granddad and great granddad, it's going to be Georgia Tech, but no one cares about that anymore. The old timer Tennessee fans remember when Tennessee played Georgia Tech every year back in the day.
No, Travis, you just tuned in. Florida doesn't count.
That's not a sneaky team.
Yeah, that's not a sneaky team. We have known they were good for a long time, so that one doesn't count. So let's post it up there. It's up there now. What's the sneaky team you love beating after Tennessee sweeps Vanderbilt over the weekend? Is it Vanderbilt, South Carolina? Is it Memphis or Kentucky? What do you predict will win? I think it's going to be Vanderbilt in a runaway.
I think it'll be Vanderbilt. I think it'll be Vanderbilt in a runaway. I do think Kentucky adds to it because Calipari's at Kentucky. And I do think there's a genuine disdain for Calipari. And so I think it'll be Vanderbilt.
All right. So we're you may have noticed we're dealing with a new full studio setup. So if I mess up at any point, can you just blame that on me and say I work with an idiot?
Sure. I work with an idiot, guys.
What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
I wanted to write this column a couple of days ago, and I just thought there's really no peg to write it, and a peg is something that makes it newsy, so you want to write it at that point. But maybe this is it. And that is the pressure on Nico. Now, I want to get this really clear from the get, guys. Okay? I'm not saying the pressure on Nico is too great. He could fold or he won't handle it well. That is not what I'm saying. There's a very important piece of punctuation that must go in there. I think it's very disconcerting the amount of pressure on Nico, period. I think he will be just fine with the pressure. I think he's going to be a generational type quarterback for Tennessee, and I think he's going to be the one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. I'm talking 2 or 3 and potentially win a Heisman. So I'm not doing the woe is me, and I don't want to be called out for that, Caleb. Oh, it gets too much pressure on this Nico guy. It's terrible.
And you make fun of me doing voices. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not doing that. And it's brought to you by Andy Mason. AndyMasonRealEstate.com for over 4 decades combined experience in East Tennessee. Best prices, best service in the Knoxville area. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. So what do you got for me, Caleb? What do you think? Is Nico, first of all, give me some background of all the pressure that Nico has on him. One of which is from Chris Lowe, a good friend of the program. But he says that he's the player with the most approved in the nation. He also says that he is a rising star. 247 Sports does, I should say. That there's pressure to the extreme.
Yes, there's a lot of pressure. I think he is the most hyped player that didn't start last year in college football. I think he has the most expectations of any player that didn't start last year in college football. And I think it's between him and Garrett Nussmeier.
Okay, but I'm going to take it a step further. Is he not more anticipated than some of the guys that did play? I mean, I take your Georgia fandom out of it for a second, or your Tennessee fandom out of it for a second. What's the better story? Carson Beck, who you know is going to be a B+, right? I think he may even be really good, as a matter of fact. But isn't Nico not knowing much of anything about him? Isn't that the better story? Please hit like and subscribe. Let me get your thoughts. Not only do I think he's the most anticipated player who hasn't played, I think he competes with some guys like Carson Beck that are going to be up for the Heisman.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And I've already told you guys where I think.
Is that not
I've already
insane?
told you guys where I think Nico will end up. Well, we've seen this before where quarterbacks have come out of nowhere, but Nico's not coming out of nowhere. I mean, the best example, the biggest example I could give you, by the way, a really good one is not character based. Guys, do not compare these two from a character perspective because one is a significantly better human being. But remember the Jameis Winston Heisman year, Dave? He didn't start the year before, but everybody kind of knew he was the guy after E.J. Manuel that was going to be better, didn't they?
Right.
And so he comes and starts, and he dominates and wins the Heisman. And everybody, he didn't really come out of nowhere, but he wasn't a Heisman favorite at the beginning. But I think there were a lot of expectations for him. I think Jameis Winston and Deshaun Watson, another really, high character guy, I'm just nailing those, aren't I? I think a more fair one. He didn't start the first game because Kelly Bryant did, but Trevor Lawrence had a lot of expectations, didn't he? Even though as a true freshman.
He did, but again, we knew about him headed into the season. Mine again, I'm going to take away the character completely altogether, but mine is Cam Newton. And the reason is, while you want Nico to have 2 great years or 3 or 4 great years as the full-time starter at Tennessee, I think if he turned in 1 year like Cam Newton did, obviously win a national championship, you'd say that's a success. I think those types of expectations are being placed fairly or wrongly on Nico. And there's only one thing that Cam could have done that year, which was win a national championship. I'm not even going to say the Heisman because I think the Heisman, there's a lot of politics in there. But there's only one thing he could do for Auburn that year to live up the billing, and that was win a national championship. And at some point, be it this year or the next year, the following year, that's what Nico has to do to live up to the billing. It's that big. It's that monstrous.
I agree. He's got to do it one of the next 2 years. And I mean, when we talk about great stories in college football, Cam Newton was just such an inspiring story of a guy who overcame stealing a laptop and, went on to, and he overcame accepting $100,000 from Auburn. Okay. He had to overcome those issues, guys.
Have you heard his newest deal, by the way? I don't want to just call out people in the media, but his newest deal of he wants to be like a YouTube multimedia star or something. Have you heard any of this?
So he wants to be the sports version of Mr. Beast, because here's the truth. He's not that good on YouTube. I'm sorry. He's just not.
That is a very nice way of putting it.
He's not good. He's not. And by the way, not every great athlete is good on YouTube. In commentating in general.
It's like he just misuses words. Like, that's a mute point. No,
yeah.
It's moot.
I could
say it fancily, and it's right. It's not.
I could look past that if he were entertaining, because Charles Barkley has never had no one's butchered words more than Charles Barkley.
That's a 1 in a million.
Yeah, you're right. That's a 1 in a million, because Charles Barkley's just hilarious. Cam Newton doesn't have any interesting takes. Cam Newton is just a total waste on YouTube. But yes, in terms of stories, the thing about Nico is like with here, and this might, we talk about Nico with the Heisman. With the story, could it hurt him that he doesn't have the same type of story that, like, for instance, a Johnny Manziel had, where Johnny Manziel wasn't recruited by anybody, had that off-field incident and then came out of nowhere, Texas A&M's first year in the SEC. Is it going to hurt that Nico doesn't have, dude was a 5-star that everybody expects to be good?
Yeah, I think you can go either way. I mean, I think the fact that he shows up in his 90s makes him more interesting. I think the fact that he has a calmness about him makes it more interesting. So there's a lot of ways without the football in your hand that you can be more interesting. I don't think you have to have a tough background. Speaking of, George McIntyre, not a tough background. He goes to a private school in the mid-state area in Nashville there. And supposedly he's telling other recruits that nothing's going to happen with the NIL investigation. If you're another recruit, are you taking George McIntyre, who committed to Tennessee as part of the 2025 class at quarterback, a 5-star quarterback? Are you taking what he tells you to heart? Or are you kind of like, you may have a vested interest?
Well, Tennessee, he says that Tennessee is telling him that nothing's going to happen. And then he says the coaching staff has explained what's going on and that UT coaches have advised the family not to worry. So they've gone like out of their way to talk to George McIntyre more than they've talked to other people.
Okay, but time out. What are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to say, oh, this whole Tennessee thing may not work out. We don't even know if we'll be a school in 2 years.
Well, that's where I met with this, because this is not the first time I have heard an administration assure people things will work out and they don't work out. I distinctly remember when Quanzo Martin was hired at Tennessee, or when Derek Dooley was hired at Tennessee, and, Mike Hamilton had just assured them there would be no issues from the previous recruiting scandals whatsoever. You remember that, Dave? When he just assured them everything would work out. And then they were both like, they assured me, Mike assured me everything would work out. So, of course he's going to tell you everything's going to work out. So I think what they're doing, and this is what I think is happening. I think the way this is different is I don't think the administration is just giving recruits their word that things are going to work out. I think they're giving them evidence that it's going to work out. And that's where I think they're legitimately presenting recruits and their families with evidence that they're going to win. And that's why they shouldn't worry.
You know what you're in right now if you're the University of Tennessee? You're in a battle that the lottery odds are flipped. You've got like a 331 million chance to win, okay? But if you lose, you get shot in the kneecap. I mean, they are probably going to win. But having the NCAA poking around just for funsies is not grand. Would you agree with that?
Yes, it's like this. And I will tell you, I am not one of them. Do not accuse me of being one of them. But I know some professional sports gamblers. And one of their methods of sports gambling, Dave, that's intriguing, they take one game every Saturday in football where it is so they just bet money line, and they bet money line on the heavy favorite. So the payout's small, but it's so like Alabama playing Louisiana Monroe, okay? And they put like $5,000 on Alabama. So they put so much that they'll win something back. They do that every week. Now, that's okay, but if an upset happens, you're screwed because you're just out of a lot of money. And so
let me ask you and the message board, if I place 3 separate bets on the NBA All-Star game, does that say that I have a problem?
I would never have bet on that game. You never know how those games are going to play out. Nobody cares about that game.
I know.
I would say that you don't know how to gamble because you're betting on an All-Star game.
I won 2 of 3. 2 of 3.
You were lucky. You were lucky.
I know. 15% off your first order. You can call Tyler at 865-919 for 3001. 865-919-3001. Best promo products, screen printings, giveaways, or uniforms for your business. Go to yourapexapparel.com, yourapexapparel.com, or just call Tyler at 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001. And also, just your thoughts in general of George McIntyre. Do you want him he's entering his junior year? Is that correct? Do we have my years right?
No, he is in his junior year. He will be a senior in 2020.
Okay. Do you want a junior in high school representing your NIL stance to other prospects? Because what if there is one prospect that you've got to give a little cash to? Do you want George McIntyre saying that nothing's going to happen and everything's fine? NIL seems to be all taken care of. Remember this too. George goes to a very nice school and he seems like a little bit upper crust. If he tells that to somebody else, I didn't need any money to go. Well, maybe that person did need money to go. Is George McIntyre the guy that you want leading your PR campaign on NIL is all I'll ask you.
See, I didn't think this was about George McIntyre. He wouldn't be, no, but I think this is about how Tennessee is recruiting amidst the NIL investigation, what they told George McIntyre. Dave, I think, and this is going to be my crazy take, you can say if it's the Caleb crazy take of the day. I
Gotta
think
Got to
Tennessee.
get a sponsor to that.
I think Tennessee is using the NCAA investigation as an asset on the recruiting trail.
Oh, now you're getting interesting. How can they do that? Is that another segment, or is that we rolling with this?
I say we kind of roll with this too, because it was like, how are they recruiting amidst NIL? My philosophy is that typically in the past, if you were under an NCAA investigation, you had to fight that off when recruiting, right? You had to, that was a negative you had to fight off, right? You had to minimize. Right, Dave?
Yes.
Dave, are you listening to me?
Yes. No, I'm listening to you. I'm thinking.
Okay. When Tennessee recruits now, they are literally saying, guys, we're going to win this case, and we are the trendsetters and fighting for athletes' rights to get paid. You want to come play for us. Because while other states and other schools are going to whine about it, we're going to be the ones up front saying we're here to protect our players and what's best for them. And
okay, that's another column I was thinking about writing, because if I'm Tennessee, I'm preaching from the mountaintops that I am your incredible what's the word I'm looking for? Brainiac, brainstormer. I am your NIL god, so to speak. I am Tennessee or Virginia. I don't know how Virginia got in there, but I'm Virginia. If North Shore was still in business, that would have been a good sponsor for the Crazy Caleb segment. I thought about that the other day. Crazy Caleb, brought to you by North Shore. Middle institution. Are you familiar with what North Shore is, Caleb?
no.
It's a jogging track where crazy people could run out on you at any point. But Caleb, let's get back to how this might be. It may actually help Tennessee. Should they champion themselves that way?
Yes, they should champion themselves being investigated, and they should champion the lawsuit with it. And they should say, look, we'll fight for you so hard. We don't care if the NCAA comes for us. We will fight your case in front of the NCAA to make sure you get paid. I think they're telling recruits that all over the country right now. And if they're not, they should. And it's the first time I've ever said that a school should use an investigation to its advantage. Because they could be like, look what we're being investigated for. We're not being investigated and hiding it. We're being investigated and being open about it and saying, you know what? We're not doing anything wrong. And we're going to keep paying players. I think they should absolutely own it.
Okay. Let me take you a step further, because I'm still in it from Fallout Zone on the line. And yes, it was Lakeshore, not North Shore. Fallout Zone says, we're in the social media age. You want this type of message spread to recruits. If Deion Sanders was doing this at Colorado, could we possibly even get away from the messaging?
No, everybody would be touting him.
It would be basically impossible. Like my son, who's not a big college football fan, would bring it up. My daughter would bring it up.
Well, here's the thing. Deion Sanders said something last year that other coaches, had they said it, they'd be seen as hating players. Because Deion Sanders actually said he has a problem with collectives. And you could maybe...
Collectives are a bunch of dudes that are trying to take money. By the way, Moondrop Beauty's loving you. Yes, Caleb, he is so spot on right now. You're throwing heat.
I mean, I'm just, sometimes my crazy takes are just crazy enough to be genius.
I love it. You're on it. Hit the like button.
And here's the...
Hit the subscribe button. That's all I was going to say. Hit like and subscribe. Yeah, I like this. And it has the feel we're hearing of a Johnny Depp Amber Heard. That would make Caleb Amber Heard. That would make me Johnny Depp. But yeah, I could see going.
Wait, what? What? Where does that come out of? How am I Amber Heard?
Why doesn't Tennessee just go all in? They're practically all in anyway. Why don't they just go in and Tennessee says, this is about us, kids. And this is about us winning and you getting dominated and you going away. Robert says the smartest thing Tennessee could do is to hire all the football players as employees, give them all salaries and benefits, including free education and health care. We don't need the NCAA. I'm with you on that, but I think that more than just Tennessee would have to be on board. Caleb, I think you have to have unionized players across the board.
Yeah, and Robert, the problem with that is the minute the university started paying them, they would have to pay every other athlete the same amount of money because the university is sanctioning the sport. So they legally wouldn't able to do that. I would say that, look, this is, and by the way, what is this happening against, Dave? If Tennessee owns this in recruiting, it happens against the backdrop of Tommy Tuberville trying to stop and limit NIL money, isn't it? And think about that. Alabama senator, at the behest of the Alabama schools, is limiting the NIL power that players can have and advocating for that. And Tennessee is openly embracing an investigation for paying its players.
Hey, can I ask everybody on the message board a second? No, the NCAA is Amber Heard. Thank you, Moondrop Beauty. I think I do a pretty good job of responding to questions on here. And I would just, I guess I'm feeling vulnerable and would just like to throw this out there that I responded to all these questions about Cooper Mays in the most recent video we had on him, and how the person said it doesn't help everybody. It just helps the superstars. That's not true. Everybody at the University of Tennessee or a school of that ilk gets something from the collective, which in this case is Spire. I was very disappointed at that. And then he left me with this, Caleb, and this was hurtful. Little man with deep pockets. First of all, I'm fat and don't have a lot of money.
Oh my gosh.
So that's where that went. But Caleb, that to me was a bizarre take. Now, I'm sure that getting back to the McIntyre thing, he's promised X amount, right? It may just be $50,000 a year to be comfortable. But is Tennessee past the point of having to give out the $2 million a year? I think they are. I don't think they're ever going to have to face a situation where they sit down and they have to pay 7 digits for a quarterback or a player for that matter ever again.
No. And also, I mean, this is one thing that won't sound as pro player, but it's true. The truth of the matter is the name brand of the college is more valuable than the player wearing the jersey for the big schools. It is.
Especially in football, less FaceTime.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in football. That's actually a very good point because, you know, when Allen Houston was at Tennessee, he may have been more valuable than the basketball program itself. Looking back, or Bernard King may have been more valuable than the basketball program itself.
Right.
But
that's a great point.
No football player is ever more valuable than the Tennessee football program. There is not a player in the world they could get that would be more valuable than the program. Is that fair to say?
I don't think there's. I think that's why it's so stupid that we attach Super Bowl wins to quarterbacks. I think football is the ultimate team game. I don't think there is a position where you deserve to have Super Bowl strapped next to it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's like wins for a pitcher. That's such a stupid stat. Wins for a pitcher in baseball.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest stat in the history of sports. Yeah, I think that basketball is the one sport where a player can be more valuable than the franchise. Any team that drafted Michael Jordan was going to win a lot of championships because Michael Jordan was more valuable than him.
Well, I do think there's something to being faced with a right, not to get sued, too sidetracked. Maybe this is another segment altogether. I think there's something, Michael Jordan got challenged because he didn't grow 6 inches in time to be a starter, right? Or to make his team. That's why he didn't just come back. Hey, look at my new ball skills. No, I'm 6 foot, 6 inches taller. Maybe Nico is facing the perfect scenario to make him better, and that's sitting a year behind Joe Milton when he thinks, he's not told me this, but I think he is he's pretty darn sure of his skills, and he thought he was better than Joe Milton.
That's possible, and he really could think he was better than Joe Milton. And
so maybe you learn. Tough times make us learn.
Well, it's funny because one of the things you bring up, I maintain for the longest time that had Scottie Pippen stayed healthy, the Bulls would have beaten the Pistons a year before. Remember when Scottie had the migraine?
Yes.
And they lost in games. Okay, if Scottie doesn't have the migraine, I think the Bulls win it all that year. But does winning it all that year hurt them? Because I think losing that year made them train so much extra harder in the offseason that they became so dominant right after that. And so you actually make a good point. Maybe losing the job to Milton, even though he was better, kicked him into gear to work so hard that he was going to be even better than he even needed to be.
Yep. Great comment by Moondrop Beauty, and that's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost you thousands or more. CityHeatandAir.com, CityHeatandAir.com. George McIntyre, according to Moon Drops Beauty, is beloved by a ton of these recruits, and I think him telling them everything will turn out fine really carries a lot of weight with these recruits. You know, when it's all said and done, he could have a much bigger impact on recruiting than Nico, who had to think about volleyball and went to an awful lot of camps. And I don't have a problem with that, but I don't think it's your responsibility to be an overly active recruiter. If you're a quarterback, Caleb, I think that's part of it. That goes with that goes with the job. But as for the most part, I don't expect a guy to pick up the phone and recruit for the school he picked.
Here's why I think Nico would be a better recruiter than George McIntyre. George McIntyre is clearly someone who was like born and birthed and raised a Tennessee fan. Is that fair to say?
Yes, most likely, yes.
Okay. He can only recruit for Tennessee from the perspective of someone who is always a Tennessee fan. Nico can recruit from the perspective of someone who you need to sell Tennessee to somebody who may not have been interested. Something I've noticed about Tennessee, Dave, dealing with former players since I've been around, it's almost like people talk about, you notice how like a lot of times like immigrants love America more than Americans do because they know where they came from.
Yes.
It's a lot of times like people from other states that come play football at Tennessee love Tennessee more than people who grew up in Tennessee did because they know that they had no expectation of it being that great. You know what I'm talking about? And so I noticed a lot of people from like California that came to Tennessee to play love Tennessee more than Tennesseans do.
Yes, I mean, I could definitely see that. So he wins people over for the passion to play. He doesn't have to win over people with NIL anymore. I think that's the progression. Is that what you're referring to? Because that's what we've talked about, how NIL will settle.
Yes, because George McIntyre is going to only win. Like George McIntyre can only speak from the perspective of a Tennessee fan. Okay, it's hard to sell a school you always loved. It's hard to sell anything you always loved. It's actually easier to sell something if you didn't love it and then you learn to love it.
I can roll with that. No, I can roll with that. Now, so what has a greater emphasis? Is it Andy Kelly playing for the hometown school and having a very stellar career? Or is it Peyton Manning coming from a place like Louisiana? What has the bigger emphasis on recruiting and getting one over and loving the school?
Not even close. Not even close. It's Peyton Manning.
It's Peyton. Okay.
It's Peyton Manning by 1,000 miles. It's Peyton Manning. And yeah, so
Steve Sarkeesian is not paid in Fifth Suburban, but if he were, there would be a lot because he just got paid. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. 2 minutes. This is a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Thoughts on Steve Sarkeesian as a whole, Caleb?
Knows offense, but isn't anything spectacular or special.
Comp. I know that athletes and coaches hate a comp. He's not, in my opinion, tell me if you're wrong, he's not better than David Cutcliffe.
No, I don't think he's better than David Cutcliffe.
Okay. So what about a Chip Kelly, who had a little run there where it looked like he could win a championship?
I wouldn't have said he's better than Chip Kelly, but I would say he's better than Chip Kelly now because I think Chip Kelly's stubbornness has cost him. And so I would say Chip Kelly. Steve Sarkeesian, I might go Norm Chow.
Ooh. I don't hate that. Give me another one. Norm Chow. But
Norm Chow.
Oh, now wait a second. You can't go Norm Chow because Steve Sarkeesian has essentially played for a college football championship as a head coach. So he's better than Norm Chow.
Wait a minute. He got to a playoff game.
Right, but that means Norm Chow never took anybody to anything close.
Norm
to
Chow
that.
never coached a program good enough for that. Norm Chow was the brains behind USC's dominance in the 2000s.
I agree, but you would say the same thing about John Chavis. The simple fact is he didn't have the skills to be a head coach. I think you.
I got a Sark comparison.
And that's a really bad Chow Chavis comparison. I just want to say real quick, I don't think Chow wanted to be a head coach. That's different. Chavis wanted to. I just want to clear that up. Go ahead.
I remember when Norm Chow threw some shots at Lane Kiffin when Lane was still offensive coordinator at USC. Funny enough, I don't know if you remember that. I bet Lane hates Norm Chow. But I would give.
I think that list is pretty long. People that Lane doesn't like.
People that Lane Kiffin hates. I thought the list that's longer is people that hate Lane Kiffin. But
I would agree with that.
I'm going to say another one that's similar. See, Steve Sarkeesian strikes me as it's kind of a bland offensive coordinator. So Jim Chaney.
Oh, he just showed up to the special teams meetings drunk. That's not bland.
Coaching.
What do you?
I mean, his X's and O's is bland.
I mean, what do you want, Uncle Jesse? Or do you? I mean, are we like? Are you shooting for Richard Pryor in his prime? I mean, what more do you need to not be bland as a college football coach than to show up to the special team meetings at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning hammered?
I'm going to say he's a Jim Chaney who likes to recruit.
10 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
Okay, he's still I nailed it. Jim Chaney who can recruit.
All right, let's get to 4 downs. It's brought to you by our friends at Dynasty Pools and Spas because Steve Sarkeesian just got paid and it's crazy.
4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all 4 seasons. 4 Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
That's all right, and we get into it right now with some payments that are going to be made by some schools to college football coaches. Let's start with Coop. First of all, people need to do what?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thank you very much. And what down is this, Coop?
Coop here. First down.
First down. What is Sark making? Is he overpaid by standards of which we judge such coaches, which would be basically comparing them to themselves?
Steve Sarkeesian's salary is up to $10.3 million.
Seems high. Seems high to me. Initial response seems a little high.
Do you want me to save where he's ranked, or do you want me to just go ahead and jump in?
I don't know. I'm really scared now because 10.3 for Steve Sarkeesian, special teams coach extraordinaire, seems a little bit high for me.
He is.
Seems a A little bit high.
Third behind
Speaking of high, what down is it, Coop?
Wait, you didn't let me answer if he's overpaid or not.
Oh, well, I thought that was next. I thought that's what we just talked about. So we said,
okay.
Is he overpaid? So that was second down. So what's he make? He's making 10.3 now.
Wait, so what was the first down question? What was the first down question?
Just the pay.
Okay, 10.3 million. Okay, 10.3 million. And it is third now behind Dabo Swinney and Kirby Smart. That's it. Those are the only two people ahead of him.
Okay. Who's closely behind?
Ryan Day is closely behind.
Okay. Who's next?
Mel Tucker. Oh, wait, that was last year. He's gone. Brian Kelly.
Okay. I think that Sark is slightly overpaid. He hasn't done as much as Brian Kelly.
Is this second down that we're doing that he's overpaid? Sorry.
Yes. Is he overpaid?
All right. Give me Coop. Give me Coop. Set me up with Coop.
All right. Sorry.
Cooper
This
Mays.
isn't a no-huddle offense, Dave.
That's right. This is a slow huddle. All right. Sack overpaid, yay or nay?
Hell yes. Yes. Absolutely yes. This is so ridiculously overpaid. Steve Sarkeesian has joined Rick Barnes as the two most overpaid coaches in their respective sports.
Man, you had to go there. All right.
But I'm right.
What down is it, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Okay. So who is the most overpaid out of that top 5 to 10 group? How many do you have? Do you have a top 10?
Oh, yeah, I got a top 10. We go. This is based on last year, but there's coaches retired now and fired and things like that. So based on those and the contracts extensions to where they are now, you go Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkeesian, Ryan Day, Brian Kelly, Mark Stoops, Josh Hypel, Lane Kiffin, James Franklin, Luke Fickell.
So who's the most? I think Sark's the most overpaid guy on that list, honestly. I know I'm probably supposed to say that for good content, but I really believe that. He's the most overpaid on that list.
I think it's a split between Sark and Ryan Day, largely because they're not even letting Ryan Day call the offense anymore.
Well, no, I agree, but you do have to give him he's played for an awful lot of championships, right? So you have to give him some of that credit.
I mean, he's lost to Michigan 3 years in a row when he's had better talent than Michigan all 3 years.
Where was Kirk Ferentz on this list, by the way? Did you not see he was on the list?
Let's see. Maybe they pay him per yard his offense game.
You remember when David Shaw was on that list and he was making $10.3 million a year? And
he was. I did not know that.
Yeah, Stanford won 3 games the year before, so that's like
$3 million. Kirk Ferentz is in the top 20. To be fair. Now, again, this doesn't include, I don't know where Kalen DeBoer is now because I don't know Kalen DeBoer's contract with Alabama. I don't know the details of that yet. So he could be up there at this point.
Do you guys realize that Iowa is what Tennessee could have decided to be? Have you ever thought about that?
What, with Jeremy Pruitt?
No. Before that, Iowa's happy with Kirk Ferentz. He doesn't get them in trouble. He gets them to a bowl game. Maybe occasionally there are double-digit wins. He doesn't really go below 6, right? 6 or 7 wins ever.
He's got a floor.
Tennessee wanted to. You keep Philip Fulmer. That's why people say now, in retrospect, that decade of dysfunction, they should have kept Fulmer. You keep Fulmer. I know this sounds out there. Okay, this is an alternate universe. This is like the Marvel thing. Okay, and you hire David Cutcliffe or Randy Sanders, and you keep that path going. And instead, in my opinion, as much respect as I have for those coaches, especially David, that I think you would be dealing with bouncing at 9 wins, and you wouldn't have that load-up season like they have this year where they could win the national title. I think that would be the difference in the way Tennessee's football program would be viewed now as opposed to the way it's being viewed as it is with
So what Georgia was with Mark Richt.
Perfect.
Yeah. And by the way,
which wasn't bad. I mean, that was a fun run. Those boosters went on a lot of fun trips, did they not?
Yes. Here's where it comes to it. By the way, because what do David Cutcliffe, Mark Richt, and Rick Barnes in college basketball have in common?
I don't know.
At their heart, their coaches. Now, that's weird to say that that's a weakness for a football coach, but what I mean coaches is this. They don't want to scheme. They don't want to recruit. They want to develop players, don't they? They just like to David Cutcliffe likes teaching players the game of football, doesn't he? Isn't that what he loves more than anything else? He just likes teaching them football.
You know, I always had a random feeling, and I've never covered him, no input, but that Sean McVay, who won a Super Bowl with the Rams, I've always wondered if he was like that for some reason. He would just like
teaching players.
Yeah, he would just like to make a quarterback the best he possibly could at the end of the day. That if the money was the same for doing that as it was being the head coach of the Rams, if he would do that. I think David Cutcliffe would. I think David Cutcliffe right now, if he had the energy, would tell the SEC, hey, I'm good. I want to go coach Arch Manning.
And if you had a son, you'd want him to play for David Cutcliffe, right?
Yes. And Steve Sarkeesian would have to be drunk not to take him on his staff. Where should Hypel be paid? 4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Imagine having the best spas made right here in the United States of America in your backyard. Dynasty Pools and Spas, their showroom is open in Athens right off the interstate. You can stop by and check out the best hot tubs and spas in the market. And then delivery, yes, they can do that to Knoxville or Chattanooga. They've got complete support, spa cover, and chemicals to keep your spa bubbling at its best. They also have pool chemicals as well. Dynasty Pools and Spas, amazing discounts for first responders, military, and even some blemish models that can save you a ton, and no one will ever notice. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Go to dynastypoolsandspas.com or stop by that showroom in Athens. dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right. Where should Josh Hypel be ranked? Can't put him ahead of Kirby Smart, so he's at the very least second. Nick Saban's gone now, so he may hold on to second. But where would you put him among the highest paid college football coaches right now?
Well, you can't put him ahead of Ryan Day. I mean, not Ryan Day. You can't put him ahead of Dabo Swinney either.
Correct.
So that would be third. I wouldn't put him ahead of Brian Kelly because Brian Kelly has just accomplished so much. You know, he got Notre Dame to a national title game, so that's down to 4th.
Correct.
On the list of, I mean, I know it's.
I would not put him in front of Sarkeesian, even though I think he'll have a better career right now.
I would. I think Josh Heupel's 2022 was way more impressive than Sarkeesian's 2023. I think that was the most. Texas got a win over an Alabama team that had no idea what it was doing, and that is the only thing Sarkeesian is resting on right now. That's the whole part. His entire career is all about one lucky win he got over Alabama in September of last year. Okay.
Well, now that
was garbage.
I don't know that it was lucky. I mean, can we call games lucky just because they're close? I mean, I didn't feel like
I think that Alabama team was bad. They got great. They were bad in September.
Okay. So better timing. How about that? They
got
them pre-Tennessee halftime. That was pretty much the goal, right? For any Alabama opponent, try to play them before halftime of the Tennessee game. That's your goal.
Before Nick Saban took over the offense and said, before Nick Saban said, I'm the captain now.
Okay. Run the ball, play defense, do all that stuff. No. Your goal is just to play Alabama before they get to halftime of that Tennessee game and they get everything figured out. Don Self, State Farm has it figured out. He's had it figured out for 40 years. They built their business and reputation on taking care of their customers in the greater Chattanooga area. 423-396-2126. DonSelf.net. DonSelf.net. 423-396-2126. DonSelf.net. So you would have him about 5th. I would have to go Brian Kelly. I would have to go Ryan Day. I would have to go Kirby Smart. I would have to go Dabo. I would go Sark. You and I are different from that, and that's kind of a coin flip in my head to be real.
I'm also different on Ryan Day. Homeboy inherited the most talented team in college football the last 2 years.
Okay, but still, he has accomplished something, so I would have him.
Yeah, losing to Michigan.
And you don't have Michigan anymore to factor in Harbaugh's contract. So where would you have Josh Hypel if you had to factor them against the contracts that we just listed out? Portions of the program brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to hemphousechat.com, hemphousechat.com, and use the promo code HOOK to get 10% off. So who would you have getting paid more than Josh Hypel?
I named them. That's it. It is Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart, and Brian Kelly. I wouldn't put Ryan Day ahead of him. Ryan Day's the biggest underachiever in the history of the game right now. And so, I mean, it's embarrassing how badly he's underachieving.
That seems a little strong, isn't? I think there's some guy still running around in whiteouts in Penn State. That seems like a pretty big
No, that's not underachieving, because what's an easier job, Dave? Ohio State or Penn State? It's not even close.
Listen, we know you're a big Brian Kelly and James Franklin guy. We understand that.
Wait, when did I say I'm a Brian Kelly and James Franklin guy? First of all, I'm just going to say this. Going 10-2 at Penn State, which is what James Franklin is doing, is the equivalent of winning national titles at Ohio State. Okay? Because
you've got to put James Franklin ahead of Josh Hypel. Did you all just catch that? Who's on the board?
No, James Franklin is hitting the floor.
Caleb just contradicted himself.
No, I didn't. James Franklin is doing what he's supposed to do at Penn State. Ryan Day is not doing what he's supposed to do at Ohio State. Josh Hypel is doing beyond what he was supposed to do at Tennessee because of the mess that he inherited. Now, I will change that if this is a bad year in 2024. But to this point, through 3 years, who would deny that Josh Hypel overachieved what was possible at Tennessee, Dave? Like, if you had AI create just an average run-of-the-mill coach running Tennessee, they would have done significantly worse than what Josh Heupel's done. If you had an average run-of-the-mill coach take over at Ohio State after Urban Meyer, they would have had more success than Ryan Day had the last 6 years or whatever.
Fair enough. Pull up our Hooker's Corner Patreon page. We can talk about that for a second, some of the things that are on that, if you can do that. And then we have a special drawing for last week's winner, because we all got all behind and everybody won last week. But somebody's going to win this week too. And you can win a T-shirt, or you can win a really cool book that I like. The writer's very affable. His name's Dave. And you can check out that book, Celebrate 98. That's all there. We've got community conversations that we're getting started. And then your thoughts on what Greg McElroy has to say about Nico Iamaleava, which I'm sure we'll step into tomorrow. And then you also have breakdowns of several top recruiting prospects. So there's a lot on there. Please join the page today. It's only $9.98, and you will win a weekly prize. And you can also win a monthly prize, which is this month. We'll give it away on March the 1st. That is a pretty cool prize. It's a mini helmet signed by Hendon Hooker. So what we want to do here is we want to try to see if I can now share something on the screen, which could be harder than you think, but I'm going to give it my best. Here we go. Sharing. We are sharing. I feel confident in that we are sharing, because it is time to pull our random winner. As there we go. All you have to do, I just removed Joe because he already won. All right, so I don't think I meant to remove Joe. Did I mean to remove Joe? There we go. Okay. I don't think Ollie and Beatrice are on our... I'll tell you what we're going to do, Caleb. We're going to take a quick break, because I don't think that Ollie and Beatrice on our group. What do you think?
Okay. All right.
Stay tuned. 2 minutes. We'll get that fixed. Off the Hook Sports. Yes, it is live. Give me 2 minutes and we'll get it fixed out, and we'll give out prizes right after this.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun at cctis.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day, and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your man.
We believe every day is a good day to be thirsty. With free samples on draft and lots of flavors to choose from, Tennessee Cider Company prepares a hard cider that's easy to enjoy. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. The area of Gatlinburg has so much to offer, and so does Tennessee Cider Company. Add us to your list for shopping and fun experiences. You'll be glad you made the trip. Find our cidery in the Mountain Mall on the Gatlinburg Parkway. Sip smart. Sip the good stuff. Sip Tennessee Cider Company. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Welcome back. Hit that like button right now. If you haven't subscribed, please do that, as we'll hold our drawing for actually last week and the weekly prize as far as our Patreon group at Hooker's Corner. You'll certainly hope like that. We've got an opportunity where we have been able to dive in with several individual listeners and fans of the program, and it's actually spawned on some columns for me. So we greatly appreciate that. And I'm going to go ahead and put that right now. You can join today, and then by joining, you can win a weekly prize, plus you can win the monthly prize, which is pretty cool. This month it will be an autographed mini helmet by Hendon Hooker, thanks to our friends at Sports Treasures. I'll remind you, Sports Treasures, you got to get to Facebook and follow them. Their daily updates are unbelievable. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. That's Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN. And then we start to look towards the season for a moment, as NC State, underrated, dangerous opponent for the Vols. That's according to 247. Your thoughts on the Wolfpack potentially being a surprise team this year as a whole?
Yeah, so this was actually very shocking to me, because not just the NC State being named a... So basically, this is one of the 10 risky predictions that Brad Crawford of 247 Sports said. And one of the risky predictions was that NC State would play for the ACC championship. And it sounds, Dave Doran has consistently, we talk about like floor and ceilings, and Dave Doran is one of those that has that floor and ceiling. It's like 6 wins to 9 wins every year in the ACC. And sounds like he loaded up in the portal, kind of pulled a Lane Kiffin for the ACC. And many people believe they are a legitimate college football playoff contender. Bleacher Report has named Tennessee NC State as one of the best neutral site games of the year. Now, I don't even like that comparison, because I think neutral site games are stupid anyway, and I think it should just be home and homes for the rest of the time. I don't get neutral site games, but
yeah. And let's clarify too. So Tennessee will open with Chattanooga, and that's going to be the week in which Nico is just awarded the Heisman. It's all done with. Don't even worry about waiting until November. That's going to be the case. So then they come off, their first real game is going to be NC State, and that is in Charlotte. And there is some importance in there, and people tell me I always go back to recruiting because I think that's the lifeblood of any program. But there's a lot of importance in recruiting there, especially when you look and see what's happened lately in that area. So let's talk about the Carolinas for a second. You have Shane Beamer, who's on a hot seat. Are you really going to commit to him? You look at Dabo Sweeney, who either turned down the Alabama job so they didn't think he was good enough, or let's face it, he's a little bit stale there. Now, as far as what they're doing in North Carolina, I've got a ton of respect for what they're doing in North Carolina, but at any point, if you have a choice to play for a true national championship contender, or you have the choice to play for Mac Brown, who's kind of fun and kind of neat, but he's kind of closing out his career. What's the end goal there? I think Tennessee can make hay in the Carolinas, like when Brad Scott was there going 1-10.
I think so too. And I said that 2 years ago when, actually I said it 3 years ago when Shane Beamer was in South Carolina. And I said that there was an opening for Tennessee to start taking back the Carolinas. I don't think anymore, though, that specific games are relevant to recruiting battles for Tennessee anymore. I think Tennessee is on the cusp of, they're either going to become a program after this year where they can go national. They'll be the program that runs all the other coaches off, not the program that benefits from the other coaches being down, or they're going to fall behind. And it depends on not just so the NC State game all of a sudden becomes important, not for recruiting, but for Tennessee needs to be a top 5 team at the end of this year. They just absolutely have to. And if they're not, you're going to see the dominoes fall for the program. And so I think
don't know about dominoes falling, but I think the Greg McElroy's that say Tennessee comes back to the pack a little bit will look awfully correct if Tennessee's just a 9-win season. That's why I think 10 is such a magic number. I just, the 10 makes all the difference in the world to me.
It's also why the NC State game is so absolutely crucial to win. Like, this isn't it's not like a crucial, like Alabama circled either way or something like that. No, well, I think that's circled too this year, but they have to actually, they can't just beat NC State. I think they got to beat them pretty significantly, Dave. I think you have to really show that you've arrived with Nico Iamaleava, and you have to show what you are as a program. And they have to show that they're at a level that you and I both agree NC State's never going to get at least under Dave Doran, right?
No, I don't think so. Could they surprise Tennessee? I guess, but this team doesn't get, well, I'll say they don't get surprised. I guess you could point to the Missouri and South Carolina game. But the South Carolina game, at least you have the Jeremy Banks issue. We know what happened in Missouri because that defense changed up what they did completely against Tennessee. So I'll say this. I don't think Tennessee is a team that shows up and gets surprised a lot, and I think that's a good sign. I think those are the Butch Jones teams that are kind of up and down a little bit more. Portions of the program brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? Go to rickterryjewelry.com, rickterryjewelry.com. I just don't think they're a team that gets too up and too down for the most part, and I think that starts with the head coach, Caleb.
Well, if that's the case, then they really have to blow out NC State, because if they don't, then it's going to be a long, long year. And this is why I say the NC State game is not really reflective. The fight with the Carolinas was reflective on recruiting in 2022 when Tennessee beat Clemson, and in 2021 when Tennessee blew out South Carolina. They took 2 of 3 because they blew that game against South Carolina in 2022. That, as you and I both know, that cost them about 3 commitments. That loss to South Carolina did. But now it's 2024. Now Tennessee's on the cusp of being a powerhouse. Now, whether or not they recruit those areas is on them, not on the other programs. Because those other programs are falling apart no matter what. So yes, the NC State game is important in terms of recruiting the Carolinas, but it's only important in the sense of, if they don't beat NC State, the season is a loss. You can cancel the season at that point. It's a loss. The whole season is a loss. Hypel's career is a loss at Tennessee if they don't beat NC State.
Well, a loss, he could turn it around. Come on.
You think they're beating Alabama or Georgia if they can't beat NC State?
Well, no. But
exactly.
I think they're an even kill program, and they're not going to overlook NC State. I think you have to overlook NC State to some extent. They have to blow out NC State. They need to win. And what I'm saying is, we all thought we thought this was a circle win. This is not like Virginia this past year. Can we say that safely? Yes.
I think a lot of people are expecting this game to be like Virginia. I don't think Tennessee is, but I'm just warning you, Tennessee fans. NC State could be dangerous. Tennessee needs to treat NC State like Virginia in the sense that they need to beat them like they beat Virginia last year to prove that they're where they're at.
Yep. What they need, Smoky Mountain Red made reference to it. They just need to run some extra dudes out there like Derek Dooley did. That always works.
Oh, man.
Brought to you by our friend Banks and Jones, T. Scott Jones. Banks and Jones represents the program on a daily basis, and we greatly appreciate him. Hey, Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, BanksJones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show.
Who?
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
So vote on this on our poll question. We originally asked it our poll question, and then we're going to transfer it into a little bit of change. And that is the men's and women Vols dominate Vanderbilt and basketball, which was a bigger deal. By the way, a lot of you still enjoy beating Vanderbilt. And I didn't include Alabama and Georgia and all those, but who was your sneaky team that you really like beating? And Vanderbilt was on the list. We also went with a couple of other choices: Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Memphis, and Kentucky. So Kentucky leads with 50%, South Carolina 38%. I'm surprised Vanderbilt just 10%, and Memphis at 3%. So a big weekend in state for the Vols and both basketball teams against the Commodores. Who is this bigger for, Caleb?
So let's get it out there first. Tennessee men's team blew out Vanderbilt on Saturday, 88-53. And then the women's team blew out Vanderbilt on Sunday. Tennessee men's won at home. The women's team won on the road. I believe it was 89-61. Don't quote me on that. But it was another blowout. So on paper, it should be a bigger deal for the Lady Vols because Vanderbilt's actually a pretty good team in women's basketball. They're 19-8. They are a fringe tournament team, and so it looked really good for the Lady Vols to dominate and for Rickea Jackson to go off. But I don't think the Lady Vols have any shot in the dark of going that far this year. And for the Lady Vols, making the NCAA tournament is not the baseline. Going deep in the tournament is, and that game means nothing to that. So I think it's a much bigger deal what the men did because finally, I'm going to applaud Rick Barnes. He finally pulled his starters in a blowout game. It was 13 minutes to go in the second half, and he pulled Dalton Connect, and he was able to play 13 guys on Saturday. 11 guys were able to log double-digit minutes. Nobody played more than 24 minutes in the game. This is something Rick Barnes should have been doing for weeks now in a lot of blowout games, and he should do it when Tennessee inevitably blows out Missouri this week. It is absolutely ridiculous that he hasn't been doing that. Finally, Tennessee got some much-needed rest, but it took as perfect a performance as they possibly could have had against Vanderbilt before he pulled them. And he needs to be a little bit more flexible with that. So I think the men's side blowing out Vanderbilt is a bigger deal because finally the players got rest, and I think the men's side does have Final Four talent. I don't think the women do, or at least they don't have Final Four coaching on the women's side.
Well, I think this is well worth noting that you said all along that Tennessee should dig into their bench a little bit more. A lot of people disagreed with you on that. A lot of people I don't think were watching because I think that it was pretty apparent that there's two different arguments here. Tennessee had the depth. You were never saying that. You were saying they're just not utilizing it for whatever possibly antiquated reason there could be, which I don't know what it is. practicing as well as they should, whatever the case may be, you got me. But they clearly have more depth than they have shown out to this point. And you were one of the first to say that. And quite frankly, you got ripped quite a lot on the message board, which I'm always a big fan of when you get ripped on the message board. But in this case, it just didn't seem fair to me. And that was troubling, Caleb.
Yeah, I've been screaming this from the mountaintop for a while. And by the way, you guys want to talk
Caleb,
about
I think Caleb, weren't you supposed to go there? Well, maybe, but I'm going to be very humble about this situation.
No, I was right. And everybody who was ignoring this was wrong. Okay. And you know who else was right? Ron Slade, who had been calling for it on our show every week. You know who else was saying it? Jimmy Hyams. Okay. A lot of us were saying this team is not relying and utilizing its depth. The same way last year I said, remember this, Dave? Last year I said they're grinding. They're way too grinding defensively. They're not focused on their offense enough. They're not playing fluid, and it's going to cost them in March. And everyone was like, no, they have the best defensive team in basketball. They're going to win the tournament.
Yeah, that is right there. That's the voice.
Yes. And what happened? They got bounced out by Florida at Laurel. Okay. You guys can whine and cry all day when I give you these facts, but they are facts. Rick Barnes has not been using his depth. For the record, he has it because JB Estrella is the third option in the post behind Toby Awaka and Jonas Adu. Estrella's been hurt. He didn't play on Saturday. He still managed to go to his depth with 13 guys. He still managed to play Cade Phillips 11 minutes. Okay, and by the way, another point, Jordan Gainey and Jemai Meshack, the two rotational players he does play off the bench, were horrible on Saturday. They were not playing well. Didn't matter because he brought in Freddie DeLeon and Cameron Carr because that's what Tennessee has, and Rick Barnes' stubbornness has been costing him. So Rick Barnes, I'm giving you an applaud. Okay, this is like, you ever notice, like, Dave, you ever get complimented by your wife when you like take out the dishes or do something you should have done and you feel like it's so patronizing?
Yes, that happens probably about every 15, 20 years in my house.
Okay, happens every week in mine. But anyways, that's what I'm doing for Rick Barnes right here. I'm giving it a compliment for doing the most obvious thing that he always should have been doing, which is turning to his bench. Do it more, Rick. You got a grueling end to the SEC schedule coming up, okay?
Now, I find this interesting because you pointed out that Ron Slay said the same thing, and Ron regularly brought to you by our friends at Dynasty Pools and Spas. But I was on the Sports Source with John Pennington on Sunday, and this topic came up pretty quickly. So here's Mark Pankratz, who's a very, very intellectual analyst who completely agrees with you and happened to play for Tennessee as well. Here are his thoughts.
You're talking about Ziegler. Look how hard he works on defense. He may be the defensive player of the year. He's working on both ends of the court. You got to give him some time off.
Yeah. My issue was last week when he plays a full game in a game you lose by 16 at A&M. It's like, to me, that's give him a rest at some point. But on the other side, you're the sixth best team in the country according to the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee. You're neck and neck with the leader in the SEC right now for the regular season title. Do they need to be playing more bench minutes?
But as your poll is going to show, it's about the NCAA tournament run, and that's what we got to keep in mind. It's about the marathon, not the sprint, and so I do think you got to be playing guys more minutes. To me, the guy that fits the Barnes mold that has had minutes deteriorate over the last probably 3 weeks is Meshack.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that at times he was playing some backup point guard if it's not going to be Vescovy. I think it's got to be Meshack because he fits the Barnes mold. Carr, they're super high on Carr. They think Carr is going to be an NBA talent by the time he's done in 2 or 3 years. But him and DeLeon, they don't play defense. They turn the basketball over. They're not tough being able to get through screens. And so they're not at Barnes' level on that defensive end. And you've seen a couple times when DeLeon's been in, guys are coming off floppy screens, down screens, and the deliverance of the pass is just late. He's not there yet. Now, you could say, well, maybe it's because he's not getting the playing time, but he's practicing every day against these guys. So he should be there, especially if it's one of the better defensive teams in the country. That should correlate to the game. It's not. So for me, Meshack and Awaka are the two guys that should be getting a little bit more minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to change gears on you, Caleb, because there was a conversation that I was in with Mark Pankratz. We were discussing where Tennessee could possibly end up. So they're thought of as the number 6 overall seed, which would put them in Detroit, which would be a more favorable draw than going to Connecticut, which would arguably have the 2 or number 1 seed. Here's my thoughts. It is time to get beyond that, kids. It is time to say this basketball program doesn't need an easier draw than another one. This basketball team is good enough to play anybody that comes across their schedule in March Madness in the tournament. And if you can't get to that point, if you're not at that point yet, then I've got to wonder if Rick Barnes is the right man for the job. Because if he's feeding to Mark Pankratz, it'd be nice to have a good draw. Yeah, that's nice. But at some point, you've been coaching basketball for 35 years. You can't get a good draw every time. You need to make the Final Four more than once. I mean, that to me, I heard that narrative on Sunday, and I almost called you, but I tried to give Caleb some time off. And that narrative of you got to get a good draw, or I don't want to hear that. That's the one narrative I don't want to hear is, oh, Tennessee had to play Southwest Missouri State, and they beat them by 30. That was a hot team coming in. I don't want to hear that. I do not want to hear that.
Well, you have enlightened me that he's feeding information to Mark Pankratz, because I didn't think about that until you just said what you said. Because here's my question. How the heck would Mark Pankratz know that Freddie DeLeon and Cameron Carr aren't playing the defense they need to play? They barely play on the court. That would only come from Rick Barnes feeding him that to defend himself not playing them, right?
Yes. And you know what I would like to know more than whether or not Rick Barnes is going to win a Final Four or national championship, get to a Final Four? I'd like to know in his heart of hearts, is he happy playing this string out with one Final Four up on his mantle and everything's good? Or is he so hungry that he can't see straight because he wants to win a national championship? And stuff like that makes me wonder if it's just, let's play this thing out. I've got my golden parachute the way Jerry Green did. That is very troubling.
Well, there's a difference. He's not, I got my golden parachute like Jerry Green did, so I'm going to go golfing and then roll the ball out and let the players play. I don't think he's that. I think, again, it's he has a philosophy where he enjoys coaching. Like I said with David Cutcliffe and Mark Richt, he likes coaching from the perspective of developing players. Doesn't really care if he carves a legacy as a champion in doing so.
Okay, but let me ask you this. He developed in the way he worked on Kevin Durant, right? Because 20 years earlier, Kevin Durant's a back to the player basket, correct?
That's very true. You're right.
Okay, so he adapted to that. He saw a guy that's 7 foot tall and can handle it on the wing. I'm like, let's do it. So same thing for David Cutcliffe. Do you think that he would coach Lamar Jackson the same way? Absolutely not. Great coaches make adjustments, and he needs to continue to prove that.
He makes adjustments with his development. He's stubborn with his scheme, and he's stubborn with his certain philosophies, such as, I'm going to teach my players to play defense. I'm going to grind them on it the whole year, even if it mentally drains them when the tournament comes. I'm not going to play players if I don't think they earn playing time in practice. So if that means I'm going to play my starting point guard the entire game of a 16-point loss, so be it. And I don't care if they're tired in the NCAA tournament. I need to teach these other kids a lesson. It's more important to teach his guys a lesson than it is to win in the NCAA tournament. That's how Rick Barnes has always been. I told you guys last year, Rick Barnes was the coach from Hoosiers. Gene Hackman's character from Hoosiers. If you guys remember that,
Hoosiers, by the way,
it is the stupidest movie of all time. There is no way that style, 4 passes before you take any shot. You know how dumb of an offensive strategy that would be in real life, Dave?
Not smart.
Yes. So there's a moment in Hoosiers where the guy keeps hitting every shot. Gene Hackman didn't like it because he wasn't doing the 4 passes. So he brought him to the bench. His team got in foul trouble, so he only had 4 players. And he decided, I'm not going to put this guy back in because I need to teach him a lesson. So I'm going to play out there with 4 players. Well, that's dumb. That's stupid, okay? And that's how Rick Barnes lives by. He says, I prefer teaching lessons to winning games. I guess that's admirable. I guess you could say that counts for something. It will develop the players, but it won't win you a championship. It just won't. And I think that maybe, just maybe, he's changed a little bit. He does adjust. You bring up Kevin Durant. I don't think he has a philosophy where he says every player should do this or that. He adjusts and adapts. And that's where he's also similar to David Cutcliffe. As you know as well as I do, I mean, that's one of the greatest adjustments a coach ever made, right? Going from Peyton Manning to T. Martin. And I mean, that's probably one of the most impressive adjustments ever for a
Yeah,
coach.
and he took a lot of heat in the locker room for it as well.
Yeah.
Took a lot of heat.
He changed the playbook, and it was brilliant. And I think that Rick Barnes can do that with his players, but he still lives and dies by a philosophy of teaching his players, and he's so committed to teaching and teaching lessons that it actually ends up costly in terms of wins and losses in March. And so I don't get the whole, again, and that was so, I'm sorry. That was so obviously a leak from Rick Barnes, what Mark Pancrat said about Freddie DeLeon and Cameron Carr. That was so blatantly obvious that Barnes leaked that. Because where do you get that information from?
Yep, I thought so too. All right, so here we go. Hooker's Corner. You can be a part of that, just $9 a month, $9.98 as a matter of fact, and you can win weekly prizes as well as the grand prize, which this month we're going to drop Friday, March the 1st, will be a mini autographed helmet from Hendon Hooker, which is awesome. So we're going to draw now for that T-shirt, or you can also win a book if you would like that. We'll have somebody reach out to you, and let's go ahead and draw it right now. Are you excited? Can you feel the anticipation in the air?
Let's go.
I don't think you don't feel like you're as excited as I think you should be. Okay, how do I spin this thing? What do I click on?
I have no idea. I think it's spinning.
There we go. Look at that. It's spinning. It's spinning. Tennessee Junior's looking good. Michael's looking good as well. Could it be?
I think it leans SMR.
Yes, Smoky
Mountain Red.
You will be out of the next one, Smoky Mountain Red, but you can reach out to us, reach out to me, David, offthehooksports.com. I'll go ahead and type that in there right now, and you can bingo. Put it right out there, David, offthehooksports.com. Kaylin said, is the Patreon app better than online? I'm having more luck with online, but I want to go ahead and apologize for that. And Caleb, we've got your present. Kaylin, we've got your present getting out this afternoon, and we'll take care of you, Smoky Mountain Red. So go ahead and email me. Would you prefer a shirt, or we do have, if we can go ahead and pull those up too, Caleb, we do have the legal T-shirt, the state of Tennessee versus the NCAA. I don't know how you're going to do that. It wasn't rigged, Travis. You're going to win eventually. I know you will. But we have that shirt up that you can order now. It's a fantastic shirt. Just go to offthehooksports.com and our merch shop is there. Can we pull that up now, Caleb? There we go. Look at that shirt. That is a fantastic shirt. As I'll be able to pull it up. Bingo, bango. It is the state of Tennessee versus the NCAA. A shirt like that, you got to print in bunches because we have no idea how many are coming, but it will be a limited run. So order now. Order now. In exactly 2 minutes, these baseball Vols are going to be pretty good. As for the Lady Vols, they're pretty good as well. Stay tuned. 2 minutes, Off the Hook Sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun at cctis.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
We believe every day is a good day to be thirsty. With free samples on draft and lots of flavors to choose from, Tennessee Cider Company prepares a hard cider that's easy to enjoy. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. The area of Gatlinburg has so much to offer, and so does Tennessee Cider Company. Add us to your list for shopping and fun experiences. You'll be glad you made the trip. Find our cidery in the Mountain Mall on the Gatlinburg Parkway. Sip smart. Sip the good stuff. Sip Tennessee Cider Company. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Welcome back. As we're going to talk some Diamond Vols and some Lady Vols softball as well. We talk about a lot of NIL and what opportunities they may or may not get. But the simple fact is, Tennessee, Caleb, I think when we look at the Lady Vols, we're sometimes a little bit too rough on them because of their history. Tennessee has two very respectable women's athletic programs in the two most visible sports. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they are a one fluke play in softball from winning the 2007 national title, in which Monica Abbott would have gone down as being having the greatest postseason in the history of softball that year. And so I think you remember that, right? Where she pitched every single inning and didn't allow a run the entire College World Series until the final, until the bottom of the 12th inning in a elimination game that Tennessee should have won, but she got no help from her offense. I mean, it was, and then they lost the next game because she had just gotten burned out and had no run support. But yeah, no, they have two very, very good women's sports programs in basketball and softball.
Does the baseball team have to be special for people to care? I mean, it was special 2 years ago. It had a lot of good storylines, or can it just be good?
I think it needs to be special, but part of special is Tony Vitello just angering fan bases everywhere. And I think Tennessee kind of, okay, put it this way. Baseball, and I think softball should do this too. Some of these lesser sports, they need to kind of WWE it up a little bit. And I don't mean fix it, but I mean create some villains out of it. You know what I mean? Where I think, as you know, Dave, wasn't that the biggest reason the NBA was able to take off in the 80s? People say what you want about the Pistons. They embraced being the villain and the most hated team in the NBA, didn't they? And they were willing to let everybody know that, yeah, we don't care if you hate us. We're still going to be dominant. And I think baseball and softball for college need some of that. You're seeing that with women's basketball right now with the Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark and stuff like that. I think you need a little more of that chippiness. You don't need it in football because football's so beloved, but I think baseball, softball, and women's basketball need that.
Okay, so I don't know that you're going to get that in baseball. Most of those guys are pretty buttoned down. The exception would be Tennessee, which allowed their players to do a ton of things in 2022. That was exciting. And yeah, you didn't have much of that in the Lady Vols and their softball success. Do you need those storylines in the Lady Vols?
I think so. Again, I don't know how much.
What is the great storyline? There's no.
No, that's right. I meant I don't know what.
There's no Gino Auriemma sitting out there, which would be nice, right?
Yeah, I don't know if softball would ever be able to get to the level where it had it. And just I want to give everybody a quick breakdown, real quick. Tennessee softball started the year 4-0, and they were as high as number 2. They're now 4-2. They lost one games to Stanford and Texas. Had their last 3 games canceled due to rain. Tennessee baseball opened the weekend, beating number 18 Texas Tech. Then they lost to Oklahoma in extra innings, and then they beat Baylor. So they're now 2-1. Both of these are top 5 caliber teams this year that you could really see compete for a national title.
Nope. And I think it's huge. I think being in front of those, it may be a non-revenue sports, but being in front of those households is a really big deal. And you do sense that, but baseball being in the Knoxville area now has already built some equity, some credibility. So if they struggled one year, it's not like everybody'd be off the bandwagon the following year. You can just feel that really around town. And that's even with the new baseball stadium coming in. Have you heard exactly how they're going to do that? Do you know the new baseball stadium and how it will coexist with the Diamond Vols, or any idea?
Nothing. I got nothing on that. What I will say with baseball is that where baseball has an advantage over softball. First of all, I don't know if you can give me your thoughts. I'm going to give you my thoughts real quick on this. In terms of comparing the two, who's more likely to win a national title? I think it's softball this year, believe it or not.
Agreed.
The reason is because softball has a top 3 caliber team, top 3. And softball, for those who don't know how the sport works, softball doesn't have as much randomness in it as baseball does. And you get what I'm talking about, Dave. We talk about this all the time. Like, football is the sport where in no other sport will the better team win more often than in football in a one-game setting, right?
I think high 70s to 80% of the time, yes.
Yes. Baseball, it's 50-50. It's really fit. Like it's when the Yankees play the Tigers, it's a 55 to 45 shot the Tigers may win in a regular season baseball game.
And not to throw like a complete left field pitch at you, but which one of the Lady Vols would be Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark? If there had been so much coverage, because nowadays you don't have to go looking for Lady Vols games. You can find her, and let's give her some credit for being the superstar she is. I mean, she's on Subway commercials and everything else. So, I mean, to overcome what she's overcome in being in the women's game, and I'm not saying overcome it because it's a tragedy. I'm just saying overcome it because you have to overcome the lesser publicity. That to me is the greater challenge. And with the Diamond Vols, they have just built something phenomenal out there. It's a shame that the city of Knoxville and the University of Tennessee couldn't work together. But now Lindsey Nelson's going to be anything brand new they build in downtown.
Yeah. So I have some stuff coming on Caitlin Clark, guys, later this week. You won't want to miss it. I've got a column coming up, and we're going to talk about it because I have a few hot takes on the Caitlin Clark hype, believe it or not. So I would say on the Diamond, and that's why I'm not giving my answer today. I'll just tell you guys that. I would say on the Diamond, what's happening with college baseball. So getting back to what I wanted to say, because there's less randomness, the Lady Vols team is better than the baseball team. And also, it's more of a crapshoot in baseball in the tournament. So I think the Lady Vols actually have a really good shot at a national title, guys, this year. So keep an eye out for that. Although baseball could do it too. Baseball could become a revenue sport for this reason. You are seeing, Dave, something you've never seen before right now, which is this: the decline of minor league baseball is enticing a lot more prospects to go to college than used to, like high-profile prospects. You know, baseball more than any other sport, the best prospects came straight out of high school into the minors. And
well, but it's not just the minors. It's also NIL money. I mean,
yes, and you're going to see college baseball nix minor league baseball. And I want to say about 25 years, as it will only be college baseball at that point. Because right now, what's the draw of minor league baseball? The biggest draw is wanting to see the prospects, right? For your favorite major league team.
Yes.
That you know they'll play for. They're all going to be playing college baseball. And by within 10 years, every elite prospect will be playing college baseball, not minor league baseball. In Tennessee, that's why they're partnering with the city of Knoxville more. Knoxville Smokies will be totally irrelevant in 25 years.
Yeah, I think anything much lower than a AA team will be irrelevant, and that's the Smokies. I think they had their opportunity to link arm in arm with the University of Tennessee, and they chose not to do that. He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. We had some great giveaways today. We'll continue to do that. Join Hooker's Corner, our Patreon group. Support what we do. We've got an exciting new sponsor that we're going to add that brings you more content. How about a little volunteer vault action? He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.